morning. I'm Sean Taylor, and welcome to Hustle.Play.Love. I can't wait to jump into tonight's hustle topic, artificial intelligence. Just a year ago, what might have sounded to many of us like a far-flung idea is now making headlines. From companies using AI to read employees' emails to fears of election interference. Tech companies are scrambling to stay ahead of the curve. Google and Amazon are investing heavily in AI software that can produce text, images, and code in seconds. And Microsoft recently struck a deal with a French AI startup that's just 10 months old called Mistral to help it bring its AI products to market. That's after already investing $13 billion in a San Francisco-based company called OpenAI, which can generate videos up to a minute long from text and image prompts. Analysts say these tools are going to shake up industries all over the world, from insurance and in finance to Hollywood. In fact, it already has. Tyler Perry just announced he's putting an $800 million expansion of his Atlanta studios on hold because of AI. If all of this sounds like Greek to you, then join the club and get ready to be schooled by my first guest. Andrea Beach is an AI expert and a leading authority on technology, business, and consumer behavior. She is founder and CEO of Beachfront Custom Development, which applies behavioral insights to develop mobile apps, software, and websites. Andrea, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Sean. It's a pleasure.
I was so excited to find that there was an AI expert out there that was willing to talk to me because I've been wanting to have this conversation for a long time. It's really confusing, I think, to a lot of people. And, you know, honestly, it's like the scariest thing since Y2K. And a lot of people are a little bit afraid of it. But should we be?
Well, I think there's always a risk when people resist change. People are set in their ways and they're set in their industries. And I talk to people all the time that say, I don't know what that means for the future of my startup or my, mid-sized company. I understand that this benefits all the big boys, but what about us little guys? And I say it's not just for the big boys anymore. Maybe it was in the early days where they had the money to invest, but there are so many platforms that are so affordable that you can absolutely jump in the game and ride the wave. And quite honestly, if you don't, you're going to be crushed. You'll be left behind.
So I guess that's the scary part. If you don't do it, you're going to be crushed. But I mean, what would you use it for? I mean, if you're a small business, what are some of the different ways that you might want to try out AI?
So traditionally, AI was used for things like data crunching and finances and stuff like that. And that's why the small businesses didn't understand how it could benefit them. And people are familiar because as consumers, they have utilized AI when they've seen chat bots and, gone online for customer service. So they've experienced it as a consumer. But again, as a small business owner, they think, well, what do I do? Well, immediately, right now, there's ways that they can deploy some AI into their websites, into their marketing campaigns. They might even be able to let go of their marketing agency. Sorry if I'm stepping on some toes there, but you can replace a lot of headcount with just some smarter, more deliberate feed into whatever the AI platform is that you're using. Even ChatGPT is a small business owner's friend. So things like marketing, predictive selling, upselling, cross-selling, all these platforms exist and are extremely affordable. The ability to service your customers after they've become a client of yours, that customer nurture campaign can be all fed and scheduled and probably actually sound better than you would have done it yourself originally. So there's a lot of things that the small business owner can do right now to make a big difference.
Now, see, you're talking to a writer, Andrea. So when I hear ChatGPT, I go, what? That's my job. That's my livelihood. But I mean, there are some, it's not perfect. You had mentioned that we already have been, dealing with AI or using AI without even really thinking of it, I guess, is AI. And then there's fun things you can do with AI. Like, I got caught up. I did the whole AI and it remade me into, some Viking princess or something like that. And I had like 15 different hairstyles. That was fun. But it's a small business, so you say it can save time. So is it creating emails? Is it writing papers? What were some of the things you would use it for?
could be all the above. Could be producing some type of newsletter or ongoing correspondence, and every newsletter can be personalized for the viewer. Which is a new concept. It can also be, again, for upselling or cross-selling, and it doesn't have to be from your industry. If you see using platforms out there, and AI says, hey, this family just purchased a minivan, so, and then there's maybe some other predictive behavior, they're probably about to have a baby. So now the insurance company can, give them a call, or some of the financial planners out there that want to, capitalize on something like that. So for small businesses who think linear, now it's time to think more of a web. So for example, instead of looking at a direct thing, you might want to look at some indirect things that can directly impact your sales, and then also how you carry your customer service on through. And well, you mentioned the writing. It's going to save a lot of time, not just with newsletters, but writing and developing presentations, writing and developing email campaigns for an almost infinite number of journeys, where you no longer have to manage and control that. That's just a few ways that it saves time right there.
So how does it work? I know in the intro, I mentioned that you could just put a text prompt in there or an image prompt in there, and next thing you know, it's created something for you.
Yes and no. So garbage in, garbage out. And it is one of those situations. You mentioned being nervous as a writer and as a creative person, ChatGPT. Well, I tell companies all the time when I advise them that it's great for doing the bone structure or the heavy lifting if you're going to write something, but you really need to come over the top and not just rewrite it to fit your culture and your narrative, but also it's not perfect. It's just pulling from the information that it has, which is getting better every single day. But I would never recommend that somebody just put something in and then take whatever it spits back out and use that. You always have to go back over it and, do a lather, rinse, repeat off of what it is that you've decided. Yeah. The other thing is it's not going to produce some of the things in our imagination yet. Now, eventually it will imagine for itself. It's getting better at it. Our 2.0 version
so it's not
will certainly do
creating.
that.
It can't create something that doesn't exist yet, right? Is that true?
Correct.
I was going to ask you about that.
Well, I mean, there are some early stages of it. So it will infer. So it will take certain pictures and can make a metamorphosis of those different images and put them together. But actually writing music, creating art, creating original artwork, creating original photos and things like that, not there yet.
Can't do that yet. Okay. All right. Well, there's still some hope for the creative out here. But you said that if small businesses don't kind of get on the bandwagon, eventually they're going to get rolled over. So why? Is it because they're spending too much money to do business, or why would they get rolled over if they don't adopt this technology?
You have company A and company B, and company A adopts AI to not only streamline their workforce. So now instead of having 107 people to do the same amount of work that now maybe 12 people can do, because you're letting AI do the heavy lifting, you have lower payroll, you have lower everything else when it comes to human capital management. Then you also have all the advantages of the not just predictive nature of dealing with your customers, but also that nurture that would be almost impossible to do unless you had a larger workforce otherwise. So you're saving money, you're actually spending money smarter, and the way you're interacting with your customers feels more boutique, it's more bespoke, it's much more personalized for them. So now you've got a behavioral advantage. So you have a financial advantage, a cultural advantage, as well as a behavioral advantage over the competitor. It's only a matter of time before that competitor goes out of business.
Now, you're a behaviorist, right? So did this really kind of just fit just perfectly into your skill set? I mean, when these products really started rolling out, and I mean, anybody can get them now. I mean, you can just go online real quick and download a product now. So when you saw this, did you really see that there was a matchup for your skill set as behaviorist with this technology?
Oh, I was kidding a candy store, because early days in custom software development, we were doing software for healthcare companies and financial services and things that are a little boring, to the end user. So we actually looked to the gaming industry and that short attention span that people were starting to have more and more of to figure out how we could design better user interfaces and better customer journeys inside platforms where things like HIPAA compliance or regulation was really high. And you didn't want to have 14 steps to get to a result if you could somehow intuitively do it in 3 or 4. So behavior was always our secret sauce. That's how we developed better software, custom software development. So when AI started to come around, even as the really early iterative stages, we were thinking this is amazing because we were doing all of that manually. So we actually use these AI platforms as ability to write and then deploy frameworks. So every time you develop a piece of custom software, you don't have to start over from scratch. These frameworks can basically be leveraged by AI. So we're shortening that time frame, which actually provides a tremendous value to clients. Okay. But it also creates stronger, better, more bulletproof code. So it's a win-win. So yes, I was thrilled.
So, there's going to be some criticism, of course, that it's costing people jobs. Is that valid to a certain extent?
Yeah, so it was predicted over 300 million jobs would be lost to AI. I would like to actually 300 million. That was Gardner.
Wow.
I would like to flip that around a little bit. What I actually think is maybe 300 million jobs will be lost, but there will be a significant of new jobs created that sadly our educational system just can't keep up with today. So there are people right now in school. In fact, I have kids in college right now. They are not even teaching the things that are going to be around in 5 years because the development is so rapid. So the skills that are going to be needed in the next 3, 5, 8, 12 years and beyond are more soft skills. It's things like imagination and ingenuity. It's the innovative side of product creation. It's also EQ and relational skills. It's how to work with a team of experts because you'll no longer have 150 people on a floor working on something. You'll have, think of it like a mastermind or a SEAL Team 6, for example, working on a project. Everybody in that seat is highly expert and highly valuable because AI is doing the heavy lifting for them. So knowing how to manage that team and get enough juice out of that squeeze, that's a whole new skill set that hasn't really been valued in corporate America.
And to your point, when are colleges and high schools and when are they going to catch up to that? So you've got people who are going to be graduating over the next year or 2 or 3. Where are they going to get this training from?
On the job? They're trying. The schools are trying. To their credit, every time that, it takes a little while for them to get curriculum approved. That's not a short process, but it's already old by the time it's rolled out. So whether it's their fault or not, that is the reality. And so we've got kids coming out of college that are really learning on the job. And that's why anybody that I mentor a lot of young people. And when I talk to young people, I tell them it's less about the nuts and bolts. It's not the code languages. It's not the specific platforms that are out there, although you should become familiar with natural language processing and machine learning and the basics. It's really more about the principles and being more flexible on how you're pulling these tools together to deploy the outcomes that you want versus becoming very well versed in a particular platform.
So how can people learn more about AI so they'll be more comfortable?
Just go online. My very first baby step that I always tell people is just go set up an account with ChatGPT and play with it. Tell it, that you want it to tell you knock-knock jokes or, come up with an idea for writing your Sweet 16. That sounds like fun. It's actually fun. Yeah, except you can go down the rabbit hole and then it's 3 a.m. and you say, what am I doing sitting here? But it is a lot of fun. And maybe ask it to write a Sweet 16 birthday party invitation for your daughter or something, and then you'll read it and see it. And first of all, you'll be amazed at how fast the output is. And then you might see what I'm talking about where you go, oh, it's almost perfect. It doesn't exactly sound like how I would say that about my daughter, so let me tweak it.
Yeah, you can tweak it. Yeah. I could talk to you about this all day long, but we've got to go for now. But Andrea Beach, thank you so much. I've been schooled. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
And we'll be right back.
On the next Chicago Newsroom 2.0, we'll commemorate Autoimmune Awareness Month and National Kidney Month with 3 incredible women doing incredible work to raise awareness around autoimmune disorders and kidney disease. Join the conversation Wednesday at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the new CAN-TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
Thanks for hanging in here with me for my next segment, which is about love. Now, here on Hustle, Play, Love, love isn't just about relationships. It's also about the things and places we love. And tonight, I want to take you to church. Places of worship had to physically close at the start of COVID-19 and pivot to online. The transition was easier for some churches and congregants than others. For older people, particularly in the Black church, having church from home didn't fill that void in the same way. But for some people, it introduced opportunities to practice their faith in new, more impactful ways. Now, some 4 years after lockdown, I wondered whether houses of worship have returned to business as usual, or, for some of us, did the pandemic permanently shift how, when, where, and with whom we worship? Will we ever go back to the way it used to be? My next guest has seen up close what the future of the faith looks like post-pandemic. She is Chief Information Officer for Urban Ministries, Inc., the largest independent African-American owned and operated Christian media company. Sherry Noland led Urban Ministries' digital transformation, implementing a cloud-based software platform that integrates content creation, management, and distro, as well as email marketing and analytics. She also collaborates with writers, editors, designers, and theologians and teaches business writing as an adjunct professor at Dominican University. And she holds a certificate in theology and ministry from Princeton Theological Seminary. Welcome, Sherry Noland.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was a mouthful to say all that. You got a lot going on.
Yeah, well, you need it in this environment. You need to have it, be focused.
And you've been with Urban Ministries now for what, about 20 years or so?
Off and on.
Okay.
I have been full-time for a long time, but I've also taken some time where I was just like an independent contractor. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's been since like 2005.
Yeah, so you've seen a lot and you've seen a lot of change. And so I wanted to ask you, do churches in 2024 look like they did in 2019?
They don't and they do.
Okay.
I would say the thing about it is it's like the community is in the church. So that's never going to go away. But when they closed the doors, people still wanted to connect with each other. Mm-hmm. So of course they found ways to do it. They found it through Zoom. With our company in particular, we had some digital curriculum so that they connect and learn online as well.
Oh, okay.
But it's interesting because there are different communities within the church, and you've got older people who really liked being able to connect online, and they wouldn't necessarily be able to get to the church. It was wonderful for them. It was wonderful for young families who, they have a lot going on. They're working, and they might want to go to that weekly Bible study on Wednesday. Now they can just click. It's right there. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing that happened with me, and I think a lot of people when they closed the churches, we started doing things like joining groups where people were meeting online, like Bible study fellowship. I was in a group that 2 women from Africa, a woman from the Philippines, a woman from Australia, all of us getting together. And it wasn't just learning, but it was learning, helping each other grow. And we were talking.
And making friends from around the world, too.
Yeah, it was it was an amazing experience. Now, post-COVID, we're still there,
Okay.
So it's not like you had to lose that. But yet they're going back to their churches. They're having their communities, but they're still, those online connections that they made in those groups, they're still doing it. Mm-hmm. And so it's not that it's changed in that I don't think pre-COVID churches, especially older members, were as embracing of the online experience.
Mm-hmm. Until they had to be.
Until they had to be. Mm-hmm. Until it was like, you can't go to church.
Was it really hard for them though? I mean, because I found it a little bit surprising. You said some of the older folks really liked being able to, tap in online. So is maybe I'm just kind of going off a myth that, older people, if you're over 70, you don't know how to get online.
No, yeah, because there's actually some very tech savvy older people, and they don't have any problems connecting online. But there's some people that it's a real struggle, and even just going through, okay, how do I get to where I need to go? How do I navigate this thing? It's a real challenge. I taught a few people how to use Zoom, that kind of thing. But once they get it, they're fine.
They're good.
Yeah, they just kind of
had to
embrace it.
Wouldn't they still rather be in the sanctuary, a lot of them?
I do think so. I think a lot of them. However, the convenience factor, you really can't dismiss that. So it's like, I think there's a both and. You want to go to the church because for a lot of, not just older people, that's your home, that's your community, that's your social life. But, if you're not feeling well or if you're having trouble moving, being able to just log on online is a beautiful thing.
But aren't some people kind of opting out or opting for some other options? Is it generational, or like younger people, Gen Z, millennials? Are they moving a little bit different post-pandemic? Or maybe they were starting to do that even before.
They were starting to do that before.
Okay.
They were already, when I was a kid, and even in my generation, I spent the whole day in church. My dad would take me to church, and he would be like, okay, you're going to go to Sunday school, then you're going to spend 3 hours in church, and then you're going to have dinner afterwards, and then I have to count the money. So I was in church all day long. And it was a community, but it wasn't like you were engaging and questioning and all that kind of thing. It was like,
because you can't question God.
No, you just believe it.
You can't ask those questions. No, you just believe it, and that's it.
Right.
So, I mean, is there something different happening now with the newer generations? They want more answers? What is it?
They are information seekers.
Okay.
They don't you can't just say, believe it because I said believe it. They really want you to, answer those difficult questions. Go there. Talk about it. Let's get it out there. Let's be authentic in explaining why we believe what we believe. Why am I doing this every Sunday? What is my purpose? And if you can do that in an authentic way, they do actually embrace the church and being religious, but it definitely is a different approach, and because you have this whole internet where there's all this information.
And all these other churches you can go to.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, and that's kind of interesting. Are people joining churches outside of their cities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm debating on joining a church now in Tennessee. Because there's so much connection that you can have. I do miss the just walking in the building and that kind of thing, but and another thing is if you're moving away, but you loved your church, you don't necessarily have to let go.
Yeah, you don't have to leave it, true.
Yeah, you can stay connected. Or
you could be a bench member, but you can do it online.
Right.
They don't even know you're there, or maybe they do, I don't know. Maybe they're picking up on algorithms and collecting data from people who are joining, but it's interesting. If you're not getting fed where you are, you can get fed someplace else, or you can get fed, the word, a different church every week, I guess, if you wanted to.
Absolutely. And you can see what you like and what you don't like and what you're looking for that will help you grow personally. As well.
I'm also kind of wondering because a lot of pastors are celebrities now, okay? And people, they'll go get, that latest book from, that celebrity pastor and, and really feel like they get something out of it. And so do you think that that's influenced the move to seek information outside of the sanctuary traditionally?
Well, I do think it makes people, at least the younger generations, a little more skeptical. Like they see, they are looking to see if you're really authentically saying what you're supposed, you believe what you're saying and you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and you're really going to be all about helping people. And if they feel like you're not being, you're not being authentic and you're just saying stuff because you're trying to build up your own personal brand, that can be a turnoff for sure.
Okay. Mental health is one thing I wanted to talk to you about because it's a big part of the conversation, and people are recognizing when they need help or they're seeking out help, and are they going to the church for that as much as they used to?
Well, it's interesting because mental health is a topic that I think we've been just discussing all across the board. But with the church in particular, I think that certain generations wouldn't have been as receptive to helping someone with mental health issues, especially if they felt like, they might have some kind of feeling like, oh, you're being weak. You should just believe in God and just pray about it and you'll be fine. And they don't necessarily want to get to the root of why you're in pain and what you need. And that ability to be able to support people where they are is critical to them even growing in your church. And so, and mental health issues, when you don't address those, that's where people are. And they seek the church, they seek the pastor, they want you, not just the pastor, but the leaders in the church to help them. And so I think there's been a real concerted effort in the faith community to lean into that, to say, okay, we need to do things differently.
Urban Ministries mostly focuses on churches and urban communities, but I'm wondering, are we seeing these kind of trends in other faiths as well? More activity going on online, more people cheating on the church with the church in Tennessee, or just looking to get fed the word from someplace else. Are we seeing that across different faiths?
I would say to a certain degree, yes, because we're all dealing with the generation that is looking for this, and so when you're dealing with a group of people who communicate and engage in different ways than perhaps other generations have, no matter what faith you are, you're going to have to address that. And so, I can't speak necessarily to my Jewish brothers and sisters, but I could say that I'm sure that they're probably meeting and discussing how can we, connect, what can we do?
I think some people might look at it as, okay, there's not as many people sitting in the pews on Sunday as a negative thing. But if people are engaging more online and getting more out of it, that can be seen as a positive thing.
Yeah.
But are we ever going to go back to how it used to be? Because one thing that's the church is also very good for is developing young people as leaders.
Right.
And so if they're not in that space, or they're not in Sunday school, or they're not in, kids' church, on Sunday morning, I mean, is that being lost?
Yes, that's a huge issue. How do we get families back in and engaged? Because kids aren't necessarily going to be engaged online. You can sit and put a video in front of them, but how can you engage them in a way that a kid needs to be engaged? And so we are seeing Vacation Bible School starting to come back, and the kids, they're looking for digital things for kids. You still want to, have digital curriculum, of course, but you've got to bring them back into the church so that they experience things that kids like to experience, so that they're coloring, so that they are meeting other kids, so that you're leading them and they're letting them lead a little bit. So you're giving them opportunities to see that they're part of this bigger community that you might not see online.
Online, exactly. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people learn more about Urban Ministries?
urbanministries.com.
Okay, well, that was simple. Thank you so much for sharing this information with me. It's been on my mind a lot, and glad we had a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll be right back.
I'm Hugo Balta, host of the program 3 Questions With. The number of Hispanic Latino adults 65 plus has grown nearly 3 times since the year 2000. For the community, taking care of their elders is often part of the cultural fabric.
We're intergenerational households, right? We all live together, so what affects one affects everybody.
Join us on Wednesdays at 7:30 in the evening via Channel 19, streaming on cantv.org and the CanTV Plus app.
I'm so glad you could join me for another Hustle, Play, Love. I'd like to thank my guests, Andrea Beach and Sherry Nolan, 2 women who are using technology to tell stories, amplify brands, and reach new audiences. I hope you had your pen and paper handy, because Andrea took us to school on artificial intelligence. But there's still a lot to learn, so we'll be watching this topic closely. I'll be back next week with an all-new episode of Hustle, Play, Love. You can rewatch the show on cantv.org or download the CanTV Plus app. Until then, stay on your hustle, play like you mean it, and love like there's no tomorrow. I'm Sean Taylor. Good night.